Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Excuse me? Izuku asked confused. I'm going to beat all three of you. I may have lost to Mei in the battle trials, but today I'm going to prove my superior strength by defeating all three of you. Todoroki stated arrogantly, getting a few stifled laughs from the others in Class 1A. Where's this come from, Todoroki? Izuku asked curiously. Whilst I am thankful for you healing me, you three are my biggest obstacle towards my goal, and I can't have that. You three bested the monster made to kill All Might and have the Dean's favor, so consider this my declaration of war to you three. The heterochromic boy stated with confidence. The trio all simply looked at each other, shrugged, and silently accepted the young man's challenge before resuming their wargaming. This statement, however, caused many in the class to share looks of confusion at their classmates' declaration, with the exception of two individuals. Kirishima piped up in an attempt to de-escalate the situation with words of camaraderie and teamwork, only for Todoroki to respond with apathetic words. I'm not here to make friends, but out of my business, he stated with a dark aura. The other person who spoke up was of course Bakugo, who got pissed at Todoroki for challenging the trio, not him. Hey you shitty half and half. Why'd you challenge them, and not me, huh? You looking down on me, you monster? The blonde screamed in the apathetic boy's face, getting nothing but a dark glare and silence. Well, today's off to a terrific start, Izuku stated under his breath, getting a quiet agreement from Melissa and Mei. Sports Festival Announcer's Box. How did you convince me to do this? Aizawa asks rhetorically as Present Mike begins his opening speech. Hello everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I have not one but two special guests with me to oversee this year's first Yeezer Sports Festival, my best buddy Eraserhead, and the Dean himself, Izuku. The loud hero cried into his microphone. I want to go to sleep, was Aizawa's drab response. Hello everybody. Yes, it's me, the Dean of UA, here to bear witness to our first years. Nizu states over the microphone. The appearance of the Dean surprised many audience's members, civilian and hero alike, since it was well known that the Dean usually only watched the third years. But if he's here to watch the first years, then means that they must be very impressive. Now, then let's introduce the classes. First off, we have the twin hero courses of 1A and 1B, who most recently survived the USJ ordeal. Mike announced, causing many heroes to increase their investment in the student who have survived an encounter with real villains. Mike then proceeded to give less bombastic entrances to the rest of classes, with only the support course getting him to raise his voice to a higher degree. Back in the stadium. Man, I'm nervous. How are you guys feeling? Kaminari asked his classmates. I'm feeling pumped, Kirishima replied enthusiastically. I've got a few butterflies in my stomach, but I'm okay, Achiko replied nervously as she held her stomach. Various other students also have short replies, only to be interrupted by Mike. And to umpire today's events, we have our very own 18-plus heroine herself, Midnight. Mike yelled, causing everyone's heads to turn on a dime towards the heroine and getting a shock. Holy shit. I know we're all adults here, but geez, should she really be wearing something like that to umpire an event watched by children? Shoji stated in shock at Midnight's skimpy dominatrix outfit. The heroine's outfit caused many a straight man and lesbian woman to cross their legs and cover their bleeding noses, all except one. Midoriya, how are you not reacting to that outfit? I mean, look at it? Kaminari asked, coveting his own bleeding nose. Guess I'm just immune, Izuku stated blandly. What everyone didn't know was that due to spending over 10 years hanging out with both Melissa and Mei, the latter having a habit of forgetting to fully dress herself when inspiration struck her, he'd seen enough adult content to build an immunity to skimp and promiscuity. Hello all you lovelies. Before we begin today's events, we have two announcements to make. So first up, the opening ceremonial speech, given by the person with the highest score in the entrance exam. But this year we've got something special, so please welcome Izuku Midoriya, Mei Hatsum, and Melissa Shield. The heroine announced, much to the trio's surprise. 13 meetings, and Nizu never once mentioned this. Oh well, I'll just speak from the heart. Besides, even if I do poorly, the next announcement will overshadow it, Izuku thought to himself reassuringly as they approached Stan's microphone. I am quirkless, Izuku and Melissa stated simultaneously, shocking the majority of the crowd. And we're here to prove that that doesn't mean quirkless people can't be heroes. Years ago made a promise to one another to achieve something, and it's this. May continued causing more and more heroes to pay closer attention. We vowed to become heroes and prove that technology will no longer simply support quirks as it's done for the past century, but compete with them, and in some cases surpass them entirely. We are going to show the world that with or without a quirk, that heroes aren't born, they're built. Izuku stated with enthusiastic fervor. And to all our first-year classmates, hear us now. We challenge you to face our technology with all your might. Come at us with everything you have, not only to test yourselves against our technology, but to scare every villain that watches today's festivities. Melissa followed up with, exciting the crowd in the process. And of course, remember one thing. Go plus ultra. The trio all cried out simultaneously. The crowd was silent for a few moments before they erupted in cheers. What an impassioned speech from the trio. It turns me on. But anyway, now we have announcement from the dean himself. Nizu, if you would take it away, please. Midnight states passionately. The fact that the speech apparently aroused her caused many audience members to gasp in surprise and fear, but now everyone's attention was on the dean. Sports Festival Announcer's Box. Yes, it's me, everyone, the lovable dean of UA, here to inform you all of a secret project that's been undertaken with my assistance. He states ominously. The trio knew what this was, but were still nervous about it. The announcement was in fact the reveal of a giant version of Izuku's arc reactor. Nizu went on a massive spiel about how the reactor produced clean fusion energy, and how this one reactor could power all of Tokyo for 100 years. Whilst this was occurring, the crowd watched on boggle-eyed in total admiration for the quirkless boy who had revolutionized clean energy. Elsewhere in the world, CEOs of oils companies and fossil fuel industries watching the events for fun all suffered simultaneous heart attacks as they realized that their companies were all about to die. As the speech ended, the crowd was in stunned silence. The dean merely chuckled at their faces and gave the audience's attention back to Midnight. Midoriya household. The three families of Midoriya, Hatsum, and Shield had all congregated to watch the festival to cheer on their children. Oh, I'm so proud of my boy. He's going to revolutionize the world. Inko cried as she wept tears of joy. David, along with May's parents, comforted the woman in her hour of pride in her son. Stadium. Now that all the announcements are out of the way, we can begin with the first part of the sports festival, which is Midnight's begins as she spins a wheel with various events printed on it. The obstacle course. Contestants, take your positions. She cries as the wheel stops. Starting line. So, how you two feeling about the race? Izuku asks his closest friends. I feel like we got this, no problem. Melissa replied confidently. I'm just excited to show off all our magnificent babies. May replies excitedly, summoning her repulsor boots. Hey, wait, are you guys allowed to use gear? Mina cried in jealousy. If you three plan to cheat, then desist. And Ida began, only to be cut off by Melissa. Ida, it's fine. Remember, we're dual students for the hero course and the support course, and support course students can use their inventions during the festival. It's kinda how support coursers are meant to compete and advertise their inventions. Melissa explained, causing Ida to apologize and Mina to sulk in defeat. As all the students took their positions, they noticed their ward declaring classmate. If I were Todoroki, I'd freeze the tunnel ground to immobilize everyone as well as the entrance to impede the competition. Izuku states over the codec, which after the USJ had been altered to act more like a friends list in an RPG, allowing its users to lock off communication with certain individuals and create social groups. Naturally, people like Bakugo, Monoma, and Todoroki had immediately locked themselves away for privacy and antisocial purposes. Izuku had made a group with Melissa and May naturally. They then formulate a plan to counter Todoroki's potential strategy. What the trio didn't see were the menacing glares that two certain blondes were giving them. On your marks, get set, go. Midnight announced as she fired the starting pistol. Immediately a wave of ice encased nearly everyone's feet. As Todoroki exited the tunnel, he froze the entrance. That should buy me about 2 minutes. That should be enough too. Todoroki began starting before suddenly. Kaboom! A massive blast erupted from the ice wall, reducing it to shards in an instant. Initially, Todoroki thought it was Bakugo, only for Izuku, May, and Melissa to quite literally fly out. with a significant number of his other classmates following behind. To escape the ice, classes 1A and 1B used numerous methods. Mina used acid to melt the ice. Momo used a pole vault to dodge the ice. Both Kirishima and Tetsu used brute force. Setsuna sacrificed her feet to float away. Bakugo blasted the ice, and Minoma copied him. Izuku used his gyrokinesis module to float above it. Both Melissa and Mei used their repulsor boots to fly above it. Mei even went one step further, blasting the ice with a repulsor gauntlet. Announcer's box. It looks like Todoroki's plan failed. Mike yelled over the speakers. He assumed no one would have an easy time avoiding or escaping it, and he paying for it. Aizawa states blandly, slightly upset at Todoroki's refusal to embrace his potential. Nice commentary. But anyway, it looks like the frontline contestants are approaching the first obstacle, the Robo Inferno. Mike yelled, announcing the first obstacle. Midoriya household. It's gonna take more than that to stop our crazy daughter, you spoilt brat. Ain't that right, sweetie? Mei's father, Hayato, exclaimed with pride for his daughter to his wife, Imiko. Indeed, he's gonna need more than a bit of ice stop our trio of crazy kids. David states in response with happiness for his quirkless daughter. Inko simply continued to weep with pride and joy for her son as she saw him fly across the racecourse. As Mike finished announcing, the ground rumbled as several zero-pointers from the entrance exam emerged from the ground. How does UA afford all this stuff? Momo asked no one in particular. They could at least offer some kind of challenge. Todoroki states moodily as he freezes one of the massive machines in its entirety. Holy cow, how is he that powerful? Asked Kaminari in shock. Doesn't matter, let's go. Kirishima cries out as he and Tetsu run beneath the machine's legs. However, the machine began to falter. Oh, by the way, I froze the robot in a purposefully precarious position. Todoroki announced in a monotone voice out over his shoulder as the machine began falling. Run. Shoji yells as he runs from the falling machine. Zeem, Shrakikum. Suddenly, a powerful energy blast knocks the frozen zero-pointer to the left, while simultaneously vaporizing a significant portion of it. Whilst that occurs, a series of explosions annihilate the heads of two others. Contestants look to find the source of the attacks to our trio of geniuses. Mei had blasted the frozen one, whilst Melissa had punched through the other one's head, whilst Izuku had done the sum for another. Announcer's box. Holy hell, looks like the genius trio have destroyed 3 zero-pointers in the blink of an eye. Mike yelled out over sound system. And all without using quirks. How marvelous. Nizu states calmly over the system, causing numerous heroes and support companies to take significant interest. However, one hero wasn't very happy to see his son get shown up by quirkless individuals and those with weak quirks. Anyway, it looks as though Todoroki is in first place, however I doubt that's going to continue, as up next we have the fall. Mike yells and not his microphone. A mysterious location. Those three. It was them, sensei. They killed Nomo. Oh, I hate them so much. Tomura whined like toddler. However, his master was ignoring his student's childish behavior. Such technology, clean fusion energy, quirkless flight, and energy projection. Yes, I want it all. No, I want them. They could bring about my vision. Now how to corrupt them. AFO thought to himself deviously. Racecourse. As Todoroki looked ahead, he saw this fall, and it was daunting. A series of precarious stone platforms inside an enormous gorge in the earth that he couldn't see the bottom of. As he internally debated on how to cross it, he heard the sound of roaring wind. He turned around to see Izuku, Melissa, and Mei all flying at high speed with Bakugo in desperate pursuit. In an instant, the trio of geniuses flew over his head and over the pit. In response, he quickly have chase, using his ice to skate over the tightropes connecting the platforms. Get back here, you worthless losers. Move half and half. Bakugo screamed with no tact as he approached Todoroki, who outright ignored him. Announcer's box. Well, looks like the fall wasn't as a big an obstacle this year. Mike exclaims awkwardly. Flight makes this entire race redundant. Aizawa plainly states. Next year, I'll have to add anti-air weapons to prevent easy wins. Nizu stars with a malicious grin, causing every UA alumni watching to shudder in terror. Well, anyway, up next we have the final obstacle, the mine field. Mike explains as his enthusiasm dies. It seems my cohort has realized that the final obstacle can also be easily bypassed with flight. Aizawa explains as he enjoys the silence. Definitely need anti-air weapon for next year. Nizu reaffirms. Racecourse. F it. I've been outshone every length of this race by those three. Now this minefield will guarantee their victory. Even if I freeze the mines, I can't catch up. Unless I use his power. No, never. Todoroki frantically thought to himself as he skated over the minefield in a vain attempt to catch the genius trio. F it. Not only have those three worthless losers somehow gotten ahead of me, but half and half also got ahead of me. This shouldn't be possible. I am the best. I am the next #1 hero. I should be winning. They have to be cheating somehow. Bakugo angrily thought to himself as he vainly tried to rationalize his failure. Announcer's box. And it looks like we have our winners for this year's obstacle race. In first place, we have Izuku Midoriya. In second place, Mei Hadasum. And in third, we have Melissa Shield. Mike cries out as the trio crossed the finishing line one after the other, much to the uproarious applause of the crowd. Stadium. Over the course of the next few minutes, more and more students slowly trickle in from the course, until the last student, a pot-bellied purple's ball-haired midget, entered the stadium. What a magnificent start to today's events. Now, unfortunately, only the first 42 contestants can continue in the festival, so let's see what the next event is. Midnight explains as she spins the wheel again until it finally lands on Cavalry Battle. Midnight states, "Oh no, I suck at team stuff like this." Kaminari thought to himself depressingly. Everyone will have to get into groups of 2 to 4 participants. Additionally, the person who placed 42nd gets 5 points, and each place higher gets an additional 5 points. Midnight explained, "That means that first place should have 210 points. That doesn't sound so." Izuku began thinking before Midnight interrupted his calculations. Except for first place, who gets 10 million points. She cries out, causing every student to look in Izuku's direction with competitive ire biting in their eyes. Crowd. This is the real challenge of being #1. Everyone wants the title. This is where the real challenge beings. I have faith in you three, though. Show the world you don't need a quirk to be a hero. All might, as Toshinori Yagi thought to himself with pride and confidence. Stadium. Oh well, at least this makes things more interesting. Come and get me. Izuku states with confidence as teams start forming with the express purpose of acquiring the 10 million points. Over the course of the next 15 minutes, the 42 remaining contestants split into several groups and teams of 2 to 4 people. Some were born from a desire to steal the 10 million points, such as Bakugo's, Todoroki's, and Monoma's, whilst others were forming simply to survive the round. The trio obviously created their own team. However, they decided to add one more member. Wait, you want me on your team? Momo asked the trio with surprise. Of course, you're our friend, you're really smart, and you're just the right height. Melissa states, getting a bit of blush from Momo. I mean, if you're sure, then okay. Momo replied with a smile. Also, your quirk is great for making babies. Mei interjected, casing Momo to violently blush, for a different reason. Despite being told of Mei's eccentricities by Izuku and Melissa, being told she'd be good at baby making still embarrassed her despite knowing the Pinkette was referring to her inventions. So Warehouse, what's the plan? Momo asks as she recovers from Mei's words. Well, it's pretty obvious we're going to have some opponents immediately. Izuku states, gesturing towards both Bakugo, Todoroki, and Monoma, each of whom had already built a team. Bakugo had forcibly roped in Mina, Shiro, and Kirishima. Todoroki had acquired Ida, Kaminari, and Achiko. Lastly, Monoma had conscripted Shirhai, Kozai, and Kaibara. Each of them have clearly made a team to take points, though I'm surprised Bakugo even got a willing team. Anyway, we have numerous advantages. Izuku states as he began to explain his plan. Eventually, the team building time ended and Midnight made an announcement. Now that all the teams have been assembled, it's time to explain the rules. First up, quirk usage is permitted, however no one can directly attack the mount players, only the rider. Secondly, destruction of headbands is prohibited. Thirdly, if a rider falls to the ground for any reason, then their entire team is disqualified. Midnight explains with clear emphasis to each ruling. Now that that's all said done, let's begin. In 3, 2, 1, go. Midnight's cries out as she fires the staring pistol. CRASSSH. Immediately, an enormous wave of ice shot towards Izuku's team with the sole purpose of taking the 10 million points. That headband is mine. Midoriya handed over, and I'll leave you be. Todoroki states in a monotone voice. Todoroki, did you already forget what me and my friends can do? Midoriya asked cockily with a grin. Whoosh! Suddenly Izuku's entire team flew into the air at under the roaring sound of repulsor thrust. In response, Todoroki sent icicle spears towards the group only for them to shatter on impact with Izuku's force field. Goodness, this is rather thrilling, yet utterly terrifying. Momo cried as she held on to Izuku for dear life. Relax, Momo. Izuku's using his gyrokinesis module. So long as you're within his range, you won't fall. Melissa explained. Yeah, Izu's a pro at manipulating gravity. You got nothing to worry about, Yamamo. Mei exclaimed with confidence. And to prove it, she let go and floated off. Announcer's box. And it looks like our trio or geniuses has added a fourth and have taken to the sky. But how, I thought only the trio could fly. How is Yaoyorozu? Mike cries out over the system in confusion. You clearly didn't watch the battle trail at the year's beginning. Aizawa states exhaustively. It's rather simple actually. Midoriya is using what he calls a gyrokinesis module, a device he creates to manipulate gravitational energy. It allows his to manipulate local gravity in a telekinetic fashion. In essence, he possesses a form of telekinesis. Nizu stated, causing shock and awe to overcome the crowd. This young man had been able to manipulate a fundamental force of the universe using technology. Okay, but what about that barrier? Is that some kind of gravity repulsion thingy? Mike asked, still somewhat confused. That would be his force field belt, a device that generates a continuous energy barrier around his body that blocks all physical attacks to a certain point. However, he informed me that expanding it too much weakened it, but it appears he's upgraded it. Nizu again explains, causing steam to leak from Mick's ears as the poor fool was overwhelmed. Finally, some peace and quiet. Aizawa states with a rare smile. A mysterious location. Genius, utter genius. How did you do it, boy? AFO asked himself in curiosity. Such magnificent technology, telekinetic gravity manipulation, and a potent force field, all without the usage of a quirk. How magnificent! The villain exclaimed on pure joy as he watched a boy with a semi-potent explosion quirk attempt to fly up and break the barrier only to fail and be thrown downward. Oh, if only I had found you before Tamura. You and your little friends have so much more potential. AFO claims as he overhears his student whining like a child at the trio's antics in the background. Now, how to acquire that technology for myself? AFO asked himself as he began to scheme. Oh, now what's this? The villain asked as he watched the screen. Stadium field. Curse you, Deku. Bakugo screamed as his team emerged from a smoke cloud, whilst Izuku's team made off with his headband. After about 5 minutes of floating, Izuku's team had decided to go on the offensive. Reason being was that Momo wanted to show off and not be accused of coasting by. The trio agreed as they knew Momo wanted to prove herself to overcome her insecurities. They had learnt from Jiro that Momo felt inadequate because she felt that she only got into UA because of her family, so she wants to prove herself. The trio knew all too well how difficult it was to overcome insecurities. They had all done it thanks to help from one another. Nice grab, Midoriya, but did you have to insult him? Now Bakugo's going to be after with more fervor. Momo exclaimed to her team leader. It's fine, now that he's lost his primary point headband and is focused on us, others will see that team as an opportunity. Melissa states as she points to Monoma's team who had engaged in combat with Bakugo's. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, of course. Momo stated with delete at her friend's intelligence. Something like that. Oh, also enemy 6 o'clock. Mei states casually, getting a look from Momo until she realized why. Todoroki's group had been wiping out group after group and were now charged full steam towards them. Ida, Kaminari, Uraraka now? Todoroki cried as he commanded his team to enact his plan. Uraraka then used her quirk to lift her team, excluding Kaminari off the ground. Indiscriminate shock, 1,000,000 volts. Kaminari cried out, paralyzing nearly every team in the area. Recipro burst. Ida yelled as he and his group blasted towards Izuku's as soon as Uraraka deactivated her quirk. The plan was simple but required timed execution. Uraraka would lift herself, Ida, and Todoroki into the air. Then Kaminari would paralyze their target. Lastly, Ida would overclock his engine to perform a mighty burst of speed as Todoroki froze the ground to add greater speed. Todoroki believed that their speed would be great enough to overcome his opponent's significant reaction time. However, it was all for naught, as Izuku's group simply flew upwards to dodge. This, however, left Todoroki's team in a conundrum. They couldn't stop safely. F it, I miscalculated. If we hit the wall, we'll all be severely injured. Then I won't be able to fight in the tournament and prove my deadbeat dad wrong. But how am I meant to slow us down? Todoroki frantically thought to himself. However, subconsciously, he activated it. A sudden plume of weak flames emerged from Todoroki's left side, but they weren't strong enough to slow them down. However, they did slow down somehow, but beyond that they were floating. Yururika, did you? Todoroki began to ask until he saw Izuku, with his hand out, using his gyrokinesis module to lift them and reduce their speed. Announcer's box. Whoa there, it looks like Midoriya just saved Team Todoroki from meeting a painful end. Mike yelled into his microphone. Both Aizawa and Nizu simply looked on in disappointment. Todoroki was willing to not only injure himself, but his teammates to avoid using his flame's power. Neither was happy at this development. Stadium Arena. Did I just use his power? No, I can't have. Todoroki, though to himself in shock as him and his team were lowered to the ground safely. And with that near miss, the cavalry battle ends. Let's look at the scores. Midnight announced, getting everyone's attention. Mike then announced each place. Team Midoriya had taken first place. Team Todoroki took second. Team Bakugo took third. Team Shinszo took fourth. Team Tetsu took fifth. Every other team had lost their points. Team lineups. Team Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Mei Hatsum. Melissa Shield. Momo Yorozu. Team Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki. Tinya Ida. Achiko Yururika. Denki Kaminari. Team Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo. Mina Ishido. Hantasiro. Eijiro Kirishima. Team Shinszo. Hitoshi Shinszo. Yuga Aoyama. Nairenjiki Shota. Masahiro Ojiro. Shinszo didn't brainwash them in this story. Team Tetsu. Tetsu. Ibara Shiozaki. Juzo Hananuki. Yosetsu Aways. Back to reality. Looks like we have more winners than usual this year, so some teams might need to select those who wish to move on to the tournament. But we'll deal with that later. For right now, though, it's time for a lunch break. Midnight announced. Oh, Todoroki, Aizawa and Niza told me they want to speak with you. She stated under her breath to the boy directly. Later at the cafeteria, everyone was enjoying themselves. Yururika was stuffing her face. Tokoyami, Shurhai, and Yanagi were speaking in hushed tones about darkness. Monoma was going off on one about something and putting pressure on his class. The trio were going over battle strategies until Midoriya, Hatsum, Shield, I need to speak to you. Todoroki firmly states as he approaches. Okay, talk. Mei replied casually, not even giving him a side glance. Not here, somewhere private. He states with slight tones of desperation. It's okay, guys, I'll go, you two stay and relax. I doubt this will take long. Midoriya states before rising and following the boy. An empty corridor. So why'd you want to talk, Todoroki? Izuku asks as his classmate stops walking. I was overwhelmed. Your last-second dodge made me break my vow to never use his power. Todoroki stated angrily. You're talking that like plume of fire. Gotta admit it surprised me. But what surprises me more was the fact that you hadn't used it before. Care to explain why? Izuku asked, with his tone becoming more and more sinister with each word, somewhat startling his classmate. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Todoroki asked. Immediately Izuku could see where this was going. There had been some old buzz around Todoroki's father, Endeavor, about his wife going crazy and a missing kid. He didn't like where this was going. Todoroki then explained his backstory, his father's ruthless training, his brother Tuya's death, his mother's meltdown and scaring of his face. It was all laid bare, and Todoroki looked like he was about to cry, but he resisted. That's why I refuse to use his flames. That's why I will beat you and Shield, and Hatsum without his fire. Todoroki stayed with conviction to Izuku's shadowed-over face. You're an idiot, was Izuku's response. What did you say? Todoroki asked angrily, preparing his ice only to be held by an invisible force. So you've decided that the best way to spite your dad was become him in every way, expect the temperature of your quirk. How does that work exactly? Izuku asked condescendingly with a dark tone. I am nothing like him. Todoroki hisses at Izuku. Your personality is the spitting image of him, and that dark glare you always wear is exactly like his, cold and cruel. Izuku states with conviction as he releases Todoroki, dropping him to the ground. It doesn't matter what you think, I'm not him, and I'm going to win the tournament without his fire. Todoroki all but yelled. Then you'll lose, and sooner or later that vow is going to get someone killed. Izuku states as he leaves. F it all. No. If I can win the whole tournament without his flames, then they see that I have to stay in the hero course. Todoroki thought to himself as he remembered his conversation with the dean. Flashback. If you don't start using your flames, then I'll have no choice but to remove you from the hero course, young Todoroki. We simply don't have room for heroes who willingly squander their gifts. Nizu states firmly. Todoroki wanted to reply, but Aizawa glared at him with his quirk activated, so he stayed quiet. Present, at the cafeteria. Melissa, May, Dean Nizu, we need to talk immediately. Izuku states over his codec. Are you all ready for the last leg of the sports festival, the tournament? Mike asked the audience with his usual enthusiasm. In response, the crowd went ballistic. Why shouldn't they? They were excited. The first years had shown off significant power and skill, and the trio who gave the opening speech had been dominating the festival left and right with their technology and tactics. But before the brackets are shown, our esteemed dean has one final announcement to make, if you would, sir. Mike announced, causing the audience to lean forward in anticipation for the dean's words. Yes, I do. Now I'm sure you all remember the magnificent reactor we showed at the beginning of the festival. Nizu states gets a rousing applause from the audience. We'll not only have our trio of first-year geniuses built that, but we have one more surprise courtesy of them. Nizu announces as the stadium's Jumbotron then shows a building with the name Futurism Incorporated on a large stone plaque. They've also created their own company, courtesy of my assistants, but this will not just be an ordinary support company. It will be a company for the betterment of the human race. The dean announced as the Jumbotron showed off the building. The dean then went on an additional spiel about how the company will open in less than a week, and that it will be hiring not only professionals but support course students as well. This shocked the audience, the heroes, the students, and the trio's parents. The only individual who wasn't shocked was Yururika, whose parents' company was the one to build the complex. Nizu, you sure do know how to adverse with pizzazz. Izuku thought to himself as he reminisced about the first meeting he, Melissa, and May had with the dean. Flashback, Nizu's office. So you three wish to start a company? Nizu asks happily. Yes, sir. We're aware of the financial requirements and potential issues, but we wish to start our own company in order to undercut any other company who attempts to copy our tech when we show it off at the sports festival in a few weeks' time. Izuku states firmly, yet slightly nervous. I see, but why not ask young Shield's father for assistance? Nizu replies with a simple smile. Well, we kind of want this to be a surprise for our parents and the world. Melissa replies nervously. But why come to me? I'm sure you three are smart enough to start a company without me. Nizu asks, already knowing the answer. You see, we kinda, sorta, need a loan, and you're the richest person we know. May states, causing the dean to smile. What would be in it for me? Nizu asks, predictably the answer. A personal arc reactor for the university and a leading share in company stock, sir. Izuku replied confidently. That's where it all began. That offer caused a chain of events that led to Nizu giving the trio a substantial loan, them hiring Yururika's parents' company, and patenting everything they ever made and locking it within the company. Present. Now that all the announcements have been made, let's move on to the final stage of the sports festival, the tournament. But before we see the brackets, we need to cut down the competition to 16 competitors. Midnight announces as she reveals a box labeled Contestant Chooser. Within this box are the names of the members of the winning teams with lowest point scores. The first 4 will proceed, and the remainders will have to wait until next year. Midnight announces as she begins to pull names. Now let's see those brackets. She cries out as the Jumbotron reveals everyone's opponents. Used a website called Bracket HQ to make this. Numerous students looked nervously as they realized their opponents. Some looked on confidently, while some members of the lowest scoring teams sulked at being left out. Was kinda hoping to show off my martial arts. Oh well, good luck, bud. Ojiro said to Shinszo, offering a handshake, which his classmate accepts. Yururika, who the hell is that? Bakugo asked unknowingly, directly on front of the girl, getting a glare from her. Announcer's box. Now that all the brackets have been ironed out, let's move on to the first battle. Mike announces at full volume, getting a groan out of Aizawa. First up, we have the energetic wielder of acid, Mino Ishido, and her opponent, a member of the Genius Trio, and our resident cyborg, Melissa Shield. Mike screams into the microphone as the two combatants enter the arena. Stadium arena. Are the two combatants ready? Midnight asks. Wait, you even get to use your tech here? Mina asked Melissa, who was wearing her battle suit and wielding a metal staff. Yup, just had to sign a few forms, so you ready because I am. Melissa replied as she struck the ground the staff, causing electricity to spark at each end. Not really, but let's do this anyway. Mina replied, getting into a fighting position. All right then, go. Midnight announced, causing both combatants to act. In an instant, Melissa jumped into air and slammed downward, just missing Mina, who used her acid to skate away, just barely dodging the electrical pulse the staff emitted. The back of Melissa's suit then morphed and launched out dozens of caltrops over ring, making movement difficult for Mina, even with her acid. Acid shotgun. Mina cried out as she launched a acidic spread shot at Melissa, hitting her, but doing no damage. Okay, new plan. Mina said to herself as she was charged by Melissa's staff spinning in hand. Announcer's box. Holy hell, that suit is awesome, but how the hell does it work? IT looks like it can shapeshift. Also, that staff is cool. Mike yelled out, causing the audience to cheer. Young Shield's suit is 100% nanotech. It can shift into anything she can think of, and that staff is generating 60,000 volts, 10,000 more than a taser. Nizu explained, causing dozens of support companies to call their stockholds and demand preparations for investment. Stadium arena. You've got some agility, I'll give you that, Mina. But my suit is acid-proof, and I've decoded your patterns. You're going to lose. No hard feelings. Melissa informed her opponent with a kind smile. Yeah, no hard feelings. I've given this fight everything I've got. I doubt I'll win, but I sure as hell ain't giving up. Mina replied with a cocky smile. The two then rushed each other full force. Mina generated her strongest acid over her fists to try and at least damage Melissa's suit, whilst Melissa swung her shock staff towards Mina's stomach. Super acid fist. Mina cried out. Thunder staff strike. Melissa replied in response. The clash ended with Mina striking the suit's chest only to get whacked in the stomach and shocked. As a result, the pink girl was launched from the ring with some force. Mina Ishido has been thrown from the ring. The winner is Melissa Shield. Midnight announced, causing the crowd to cheer for the winner. Hey Mina, you good? Melissa asked her now defeat opponent. Yeah, I'll live. Did my acid even harm your suit? Mina replied, still recovering from the tossing. Melissa then helped Mina up and walked her to Recovery Girl, getting even more cheers from the crowd for her sportsmanship. Class 1A seats. Man, I kinda feel bad for Mina. She got an impossible fight right at the beginning. Toru lamented, feeling bad for her friend. But she did her best, and since Melissa's suit is so tough, it meant she got to show off her full strength to the crowd, which is great. Ochiko replied with a smile. Yeah, I guess you're right. Anyone want to come with Ti go see her? Toru replied, getting up, causing Ochiko to get up and follow her. Midoriya household. That's my girl. You've made me so proud, Melly. David cried as he watched his daughter win her first bracket fight. He was comforted by Inko and Emiko, whilst Hayato gave him a pat on the back. Announcer's box. What a great first match. What do you think, best buddy? Mike announced, asking Aizawa his opinion. Ishido was at a significant disadvantage, but she didn't give up. She used her skills such as her agility to the best of her ability. Aizawa states blandly. Honest praise from Aizawa. How rare. Now then, next up we have two strong-willed combatants. The anti-gravity girl, Ochiko Yururika, and the living bomb, Katsuki Bakugo. Mike announced as the next two combatants entered the arena. Stadium arena. The fight between Bakugo and Yururika was less enjoyable, with the blonde showing his ruthlessness and total apathy for his opponent as he inflicted pain upon the poor girl. Yururika, for her part, despite being overpowered, showed off her strength and inhuman endurance, even almost winning at one point using a special move, her meteor shower, which was unfortunately destroyed by Bakugo, who immediately went back to assaulting the young woman until her was physically held back. Midnight and Cementos. His actions were booed and criticized by the crowd for causing unnecessarily damage. Despite this hatred for the young man, Bakugo was deemed the winner, which no one liked. Even Aizawa, who half-heartedly defended the blonde, saw that the young man is a sadist. Announcer's box. That young man is pushing his luck at this point. I need to have a chat with Nizu and Hound Dog later. Aizawa thought to himself angrily. Stadium Arena. The next fight between the two manly rivals of Kirishima and Tetsu was far more enjoyable and impressive as it showed off the two students' endurance, durability, strength, stubbornness, and sportsmanship. The fight was filled with grapples, punches, headbutts, and cross-counters until the two young men fell simultaneously, both unable to move after 15 minutes of continuous fighting. Since the match ended in a draw, Midnight announced that they'd have a tiebreaker after all the first bracket matches. Announcer's box. After that awe-inspiring show of manliness, up next we have Class 1B's resident green-thumbed fighter, Shiozaki Ibara. Her opponent, another member of the Genius Trio, the Mad Hurricane inventor, Mei Hatsum. Mix announced as the next two fighters entered the arena. Stadium Arena. Hey, I'm not mad, just a bit eccentric. Mei states in response to Mike's description of her, as she adjusted her nanotech deposits. Are both combatants ready? Midnight asked the two fighters. Already here, teach. Mei states casually as she pulls off a piece of nanotech. I am ready, sensei. Ibara states with a calm tone, as her thorny vine-like hair starts to squirm. All right then, go. Midnight cries out, causing the two fighters to sling into action. In an instant, Ibara's vines surrounded Mei on all sides, ready to ensnare the pink genius. Saitama equals Mei, Kombu Infinity equals Ibara. Suddenly, all the vines were shredded in an instant. What? Was Ibara's only reaction to her vines being cut this quickly? Then she saw Mei standing there, wielding an axe with a blade that looked rather strange. How? Even a chainsaw would struggle to cut my vines. How did you cut them so easily? Ibara asked Mei in disbelief. With the help of this handy-dandy baby of mine, the vibrokinetic axe, you like it? Mei replies with a bright smile, causing Ibara to become confused. Announcer's box. Holy hell. In an instant, Hatsum has shredded Ibara's mighty vines with a weird energy axe. Mike announces over the deafening cheers of the crowd. That would be young Hatsum's vibrokinetic axe, a device that uses an electromagnetic field to vibrate particles at hypersonic speeds, allowing the weapon to cut through nearly any material. Nizu explained, causing even more cheers. Stadium Arena. Do you want to keep going, or you want to surrender? Because I'm okay with both. Mei asks as she slings the axe over her shoulder. If the Lord wills that win or lose, then I shall accept it, but I shall not surrender. Ibara replied as she launched more vines. In response, Mei shot forward, cutting any vine that gets close as she made her way towards the vine user, only to suddenly be thrown as several vines embedded in the ground displace the arena floor and give Ibara an opportunity to relocate. As soon as Mei recovers, she immediately starts removing pieces of her suit and assembling them into a weapon, while simultaneously cutting even more vines that attempted to restrain her. How is she multitasking under this kind of pressure? I'm running out of vines. Maybe. Yes, that might work. Ibara thought to herself frantically as she quickly put a plan into motion. She ran long vines underground and prepared to pull her opponent into the ground and trap their feet. However, it was too late. Mei suddenly fired the weapon she was working on just as Ibara's vines emerged from the ground, but they were too slow. The weapon fired a continual beam that hit the vine user and did no damage. Instead, the beam's energy surrounded Ibara's entire being, including her extended vines, and froze her in place. She was trapped. This in Mei's colors. Ibara, can you continue fighting? Midnight asked, unsure of what Mei's weapon was. She's not going to answer you. Mei replied as she cut the vines that were underground. Then she moved her weapons and its beam, along with Ibara, moved out the ring but above the ground. Mei then deactivated her weapons, and Ibara fell to ground outside the arena. Shiozaki Ibara has been removed from the ring. The winner is Mei Hatsum. Midnight announced, still slightly confused. Announcer's box. Another stellar fight. But what the hell was that beam weapon? It froze Ibara in space. Mike announced loudly over the speakers, causing cheers to erupt. That was young Hatsum's stasis gun, a weapon that utilizes zero-point energy to hold molecular structures in place. It's a very handy instant win since it can't really be resisted, only dodged. Nizu explained, causing every pro capture hero to become jealous of the invention. Up next we have the cold and calculating son of Endeavor, Shoto Todoroki. and his opponent, the master of masking tape, Hantashiro. Mike announced, introducing the next two combatants. Midoriya household. Hell yeah, May, you show them what for. May's father cheered as his wife simply smiled at their daughter's success. Class 1A stance. A freaking stasis gun, that's an unfair level of OP. Mina cried out as she witnessed the immobilizing weapon. It is impressive though, I must ask, Midoriya, why didn't you use that on the Momo, was it? Instead of killing the beast? Momo asked the greenette. Better to put down a savage beast than risk a caged beast escaping and going on a rampage. Izuku replied coldly, causing the class to view the trio and hero work with a more nuanced view. Sometimes killing is the better option with some opponents. They just hoped they never had to encounter said opponents. Stadium Arena. The next few fights were impressive but relatively short. As soon as midnight announced the beginning of the next match, Todoroki unleashed a, frankly unnecessarily powerful, wave of ice that instantly incapacitated Zero and almost injured the crowd with how large the attack was. Todoroki was immediately announced as the winner. He was at least kind enough to melt the ice. Next was a battle between Ida and Kaminari. This fight was also over in an instant. It had to be, otherwise either would lose. Kaminari unleashed his strongest omnidirectional attack in an attempt to instantly defeat Ida, but the speedster didn't let him. Ida unleashed his Recipro Burst and knocked the sparking Kaminaris out the arena before he could unleash his electrical shockwave. Ida was announced the winner. The second to last round was likely the most intense out of the three. Aoyama and Momo stepped up to the arena, and as soon as midnight began the match, the two combatants sprung into action. Aoyama unleashed his naval beam, but it was intercepted by a riot shield made by Momo. Momo then countered with several canisters of tear gas. The flamboyant student blasted one canister, but two more went off. He ran from the cloud before he was afflicted by the gas. However, he was again intercepted by Momo, who used her riot's shield flash function, blinding her opponent. The blinded Frenchman began firing in Momo's direction, but was eventually forced out the arena by Momo using the shield to shove him from the ring. Announcer's box. Another brilliant match. Wouldn't you agree, best buddy? Mike announced, asking Aizawa on his opinion. Yaoyorozu used her quirk in an inventive way and used everything to her advantage. And Aoyama did what he could given the circumstances. Aizawa states blandly. What electrifying commentary. But now, folks, for the last match of the first bracket, the final member of the Genius Trio, Izuku Midoriya, and Class 1A's resident mind-taker, Hitoshi Shinszo. Mike announced as the last two competitors of the bracket walked out into the arena. Stadium Arena. Hey Shinszo, you feeling alright? Izuku asked his opponent, who looked rather pale. Why, yeah, I'm fine. Shinszo replied unconvincingly as he sweat bullets. Oh god, why? Why did I get put up against him? He knows my quirk. He has a nigh impenetrable force field, and he's more than likely in the top 5 smartest people in the world. How do I win this? Shinszo thought to himself frantically. Hey Shinszo, catch. Izuku said had he tossed something toward Shinszo. The hell's this? Shinszo asked as he caught the strange rod-shaped object. A piece of equipment to even the playing field, and a weapon from a more civilized age. Izuku replied cryptically as he pulled out his own rod-shaped device and gestured to its button. In response, Shinszo pushed the button on his device, and what happened next nearly made him cry. Kenobi equals Shinszo. Shinszo was lost for words. The crowd was lost for words. Every person watching the festival on a screen was lost for words as the hero student ignited a lightsaber. Announcer's box. Holy cow, that's an actual lightsaber. I'm so jealous right now. Mike cried out, stirring the crowd of their speechlessness. I don't think I need to explain this one. Nizu interjected with a grin. A mysterious location. An actual lightsaber. I want one. I want one. I want one. Shigaraki whined like toddler to the undisguised sigh of Kurogiri and his master. Class 1A stance. I with present Mike on this. I'm so jealous. That's an actual lightsaber. Kaminari cried out with comical tears streaming down his face. He was joined by Zero, Mina, Achiko, and Hagakure. The 5 of them then dropped to their knees in front of Melissa and May and began to beg. I'll pay anything you want, I just want one. Mina begged. You need a living generator. I'll do it. Please, I want a cool laser sword. Kaminari begged. The other 3 also begged with varying levels of lost dignity. This caused Melissa to be a bit embarrassed. May, however, well, each one cost 14 million yen in parts alone, so it's going to take a lot to pay it off. May states in reply to their begging, causing the 5 beggars to go pale, causing May to smirk. Stadium Arena. Shinszo was on the verge of tears. He remembered when his father introduced him to the Star Wars movies, TV shows, comics, and books, how they made him happy. When he got his quirk, he wanted to call it the Jedi mind trick, but when he told all his friends, they went quiet. For over 10 years he was alone. So Shinszo, you ready to remind the world what a Jedi is? Izuku asked as he ignited his own saber. Are both contestants now ready? Midnight asked, hiding her bewilderment at the laser swords. More than I've ever been in my life. Shinszo replied as he took the Ataru lightsaber stance. Let's do this. Izuku replied as he took the Ceresis stance, much to Shinszo's surprise. Ready, go? Midnight cried out, causing both combatants to speed towards one another. The two fighters' weapons clash in a flurry of strikes that would make a master swordsman weep. Shinszo was surprisingly good with weapon, and Izuku was using Mayday to accelerate his reactions. Both fighters continued to unleash strike after strike in a beautiful sequence of thrusts, swings, parries, and jabs. However, neither were making any headway in defeating their opponent, but both fighters were having too much fun to care. Eventually, however, Izuku's superior strength and speed overwhelmed Shinszo's surprising skill, leading to Izuku cutting his opponent's lightsaber in half and tripping him with his foot. Surrender. You did your best. Izuku states as he points his saber at his downed opponent. I surrender. Shinszo replied, slight disappointment in himself, leading to Izuku giving him a hand up. Shinszo has surrendered. The winner of the final match of Bracket 1 is Izuku Midoriya, and what a match it was. How exhilarating. Midnight announced, barely disguising her hormones, but getting a massive cheer from the crowd covered it up. Midoriya household. Oh my boy, I'm so proud of you. You're such a kind soul. Inko cried as tears of pride and joy threatened to flood the house. Thankfully, David, Emiko, and Hayato stopped her from crying before the entire house waterlogged. Stadium Arena. Hey Midoriya, so I know you've known Melissa for a long time, and I was wondering if, well, could you perhaps? Shinszo asked his friend awkwardly as they left the arena. You want me to put in a good word for you because you like her? Is that it? Izuku asked sarcastically with a grin, causing Shinszo to turn away in order to hide his blush. Yes, that. He replied quietly. Of course, buddy. Anything for a friend. Izuku replied as he swung his arm around Shinszo's shoulder before giving a look that scared the brainwasher to his very core. But I warn you, if you hurt her in any way, then I, May, and her father, David Shield, a man with All Might's phone number, will bury you. Izuku states with a cold tone of voice that made Shinszo feel extremely small. Oh God, what have I gotten myself into? Oh well, it's for Melissa. I'm willing to risk death for that. Shinszo thought to himself as he and Izuku made their way to Class 1A seating section. VSO, this was the end of Part 5 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.